With generation 1 done and dusted, generation 2 is in the bucket. Hello and welcome back to another episode, and today, as you can see, something is bubbling next to me. Now this is generation 2 of that easy to make moonshine or corn liquor that we made a couple of weeks ago, or last week if I'm not mistaken. We had some technical difficulties during the run, as well as we had a mic failure during the recording. So yes, this is going to be a slightly different video than the normal one. We will try and use the footage as best as we can, and I'll talk you through the process. So yeah, thank you very much for bearing with us. Now let's get started with how the run started and what happened. There's only one way to know for sure if your wash is ready to ferment, not ready to ferment, ready to distill, and that is if your hydrometer being this baby over here, that gives you a scale of the water density, goes down to 1 or to below 1. So a 0.995 or a 0.99 something, or a 1.000. Then you know all the sugars within the wash has been chewed up by the yeast and converted into alcohol. Now I get this question a lot: can I do the run before my hydrometer hits 0 or hits 1? And the answer is yes. It's a hobby, you can do whatever you want. So if it doesn't reach below that point and you want to run it, run it. All that you need to know is that if you have way too much sugar in there, it might burn and give some funky flavors, or alternatively you are just leaving a lot of money in your bucket in the form of unfermented sugars. So yeah, nothing can go wrong, you can't die if you run it before. So yeah, I tried to explain that. We didn't have audio. What we did is we added everything into, or we filled our, or tried to fill our boiler with our wash. We ran it through a screen to catch any little particulate, and smart little old me forgot to close the bottom tap. So I opened up the tap on the jug or the fermenter, walked away, and when I came back, half the wash was on the floor, as you can see in the footage right now. So I didn't catch the open tap, but it all ended up on the floor. So yeah, that happened, but it was still enough wash to do a run. So what we did is we did a quick taste test of all the jars, and like I was saying in the beginning, unfortunately audio failed us. So let me just give you a quick recap of what we did, or what I tasted. From jar 1 to 3, it was very sweet, trademark sugar head sweetness. We took the run off at 68%, and then we proofed it back down to 55. Now what I also did is I did manage to grab a tiny bit of the wash before it went into the boiler, so I can do an A/B comparison between the final distillate as well as the wash, so you see what kind of flavors carried over and what didn't carry over. So on the nose, the wash has a little bit of a grain smell to it, a little bit of a unhopped beer. So when your wash or your wort just starts fermenting, it has that kind of smell. It's still very sweet and very bitter on the taste. For the run itself, the flavor that came out of the wash through the distillate was sweet, grainy, and a very nice balance of a sugar head as well as a all grain wash. So it doesn't have that complexity of an all grain, but it does have the nice sweet flavors from the grain that has a nice sweet finish with a grain finish at the end when we start running into the tail. So we also blend it back into the final product. So yeah, as I remember on the nose, nice and sweet, a slight hint of grain finish. Very much like a grain whiskey, you have that sweet upfront taste like a corn whiskey or a corn heavy whiskey, and then it just tapers off and it goes away. That's it for the taste test. And then what we did to age it, or what we are doing to age it, is we are aging it once again on some American white oak. Why always American white oak? Well, I like the flavors, I like that nice wood astringency that it gives to it. So as you can see, we have 3 pieces of American white oak in here. One piece is completely untoasted, it is raw American white oak. The other piece is toasted at 220 degrees for 3 hours, and then we took another 220 degree toast and we charred the living crap out of it with our blowtorch, added into our jar, and yeah, this is now going to be aged like this with the oak in for 2 months. Now after the 2 months, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the oak and I'm going to introduce some heavy toasted cherry wood that will add some sweetness back into this. Now for the part that everybody stuck around to the end for. Number 1, a sour mash. Now we are taking, or a generational wash, we are taking this recipe and making a generational wash or turning it into a sour mash. Now a sour mash is quite simply using some of the leftover unused either grain or spent grain, or balm, the little lees or sediment that settles out in the bottom of your fermenter, or the backset to use in your next fermentation. So you're going to use that flavorful leftover material in your next wash to promote a souring process. You actually get like a sourdough bread, a better and more developed, more enhanced flavor from every generation that you're doing. We're going to run this specific wash for 4 generations in total. So what we did to make our wash is we took our backset. Now the backset is the stuff that's left over in the boiler after you're done distilling. If you need to distilling, yes, there is stuff left over in your boiler when you're done doing your run. For the run we did here, after spilling half of it, we had about 13 liters in our boiler. We took off about 1.3 liters of product, so that means that there should be theoretically about 11 point something liters of backset in the boiler. Now we took that backset nice and hot, we added it into a bucket. We then took our Mieliepap or our grains, we added that into the bucket as well. Then we took our sugars, added our sugar. Pretty much exactly the same as the previous recipe. The only difference is we used hot water in the previous recipe, now we're just using hot backset. We then mixed it all up, got all those sugars nice and dissolved, made sure that there is no clumps of grain anywhere within that bucket. What we did then is we once again left it for 20 minutes so that that grain can steep in that nice hot liquid and extract as much flavor as possible from the grain. Now, I don't know if it worked or it didn't work. All I know is that this product has a lot of grain flavor, surprising to me. After 20 minutes, what we did is we took that nice hot liquid and we cooled it down by adding hot and cold water up until we got to pitching temperature. Once we hit pitching temperature, we added the yeast into it and we put the lid on. Now this is going to ferment out, or going to stand and ferment, as you can see that it is currently going. It is going to ferment and then we're going to run it again, and that will be referred to as generation number 2. We will do exactly the same process for the next 2 generations, 3 and 4, using the backset from the run, not from the original run, don't confuse that, but from that run there. So all the backset that was left over in the boiler now, I have tossed. It is away, no longer going to use it. We will be using the backset from this run when we're done with it. Also, one thing we did with this recipe that we didn't do with the previous one is I upped the sugar content. Now because I got very little product out of this run, I decided to up the sugar content as well to 4 kilograms of sugar, giving us a potential alcohol by volume of around 11 to 12%, depending on how well the yeast chews it up. we should be ending up on about 11 to 12% ABV, giving us a tiny bit more product that we can pull off at the end. If you stuck around to this far, thank you very much for joining us for another episode. Sorry about the failing audio. Sorry if this video is a bit odd compared to the other ones, but yeah, we did fix the mic issue now. So we will be back with the Rumble video pretty soon. So yeah, thank you very much and have a lekker day.